Amelia Earhart, the first female pilot to fly across the Atlantic Ocean, mysteriously disappeared while flying over the Pacific Ocean in 1937.
At 10 a.m. on July 2nd, Amelia and Fred are ready to begin the most difficult part of their flight, from Lae, New Guinea to Howland Island. This grainy film records the last time Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan are ever seen alive. But the footage may reveal something else: serious damage to their plane, unknown until recently.
This is the takeoff from Lae, New Guinea, and it contains an important clue.
Photo analyst Jeff Glickman discovered it when he took a close look at that footage.
This is the last film of Earhart, and as the takeoff roll starts here, you can see a puff of smoke right there. This puff of smoke comes from the rear bottom of the airplane, and in that location is an antenna mast, and that antenna mast appears to have snapped off.
That mast supports the Electra's main receiving antenna, strung along the belly of the plane. Without the belly antenna, Amelia will be unable to receive any radio transmissions. She doesn't know it yet, but she's cut off from the outside world.
Air France Flight 447 was a scheduled passenger flight from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil to Paris, France. It crashed on June 1, 2009. The Airbus A330 entered an aerodynamic stall from which it did not recover and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean at 2:14 in the morning.
A tragic combination of equipment failure and errors by the crew led to the deadliest crash in the history of Air France. That's the conclusion of French investigators after a 3-year probe. The accident was the result of the crew losing all sense of awareness of the situation, he says. Flight 447 took off from Rio de Janeiro for Paris, and 3 hours and 39 minutes into the flight, it hit a monster thunderstorm that froze up the plane's speed sensors. That shut off the autopilot, and with no indication of their speed, the crew was unsure how to react. It made the fatal decision of nosing the plane upwards into a stall. Even though the engines still worked, the plane plunged for 3.5 minutes into the ocean. Only a determined and well-experienced crew, maybe a fighter pilot, could have recovered, he says. All 228 people on board, including Guelph, Ontario native Brad Clems, were killed. His brother traveled to France to listen to the report.
I'm satisfied. I think they did a very good job. They've gone into great detail.
But others felt too much of the blame was put on the pilots.
They didn't occupy with technical reasons for the crash.
Since the crash, Air France has replaced those faulty speed sensors. But the head of the pilots union says the industry relies too much on computerized flight systems. If it hadn't been for the arrogance of Airbus saying its planes couldn't stall, maybe our pilots would have been trained for this situation. More pilot training for high-altitude stalls is indeed one of the report's recommendations, along with improved warning systems. But there remains a nagging feeling this accident could have been avoided, and both Airbus and Air France are accused of manslaughter.
MH370 disappeared on March 8, 2014, along with its 12 Malaysian crew members and 227 passengers from 15 different nations.
Air traffic controllers in Southeast Asia have lost contact with a jumbo jet carrying 239 people.
Their fates still unknown. For their families, every day emotional highs and extreme lows.
The Malaysia Maritime Enforcement Agency also spotted oil slicks in the South China Sea.
Malaysian authorities, meanwhile, have identified 2 passengers traveling on stolen passports. Police say there's no evidence the 2 young men were part of any terrorist group.
We have now learned that the plane was way off course when it disappeared, that the plane had almost done a complete U-turn. The question now is why, and another big question, of course, is where.
"All right, good night." Those are the last words heard from the cockpit of Flight 370. One of the first questions for investigators: who were the two men at the controls of Flight 370?
Two communication systems stopped working within minutes of each other. Was someone trying to hide the plane?
What we don't know and what we do know are sort of starting to come together.
Its last contact, 8:11 a.m., somewhere along this arc that stretches as far north as Kazakhstan and as far south as the Indian Ocean west of Australia.
The focus of Australia's search efforts now are trying to locate two pieces of debris spotted in satellite information.
It is probably the best lead we have right now, but we need to get there, find them, see them, assess them, to know whether it's really meaningful or not.
9,000 miles searched, but nothing to show for it, for 5 planes scouring the vast waters of the Indian Ocean.
It's about the most inaccessible spot that you could imagine on the face of the Earth. But if there is anything down there, we will find it.